owners listening right now, they go, okay, I do have an LOI. They are talking about SBA. How long is this process with SBA going to take to get done?
So that is going to depend on a lot of factors, right? If everyone is motivated and giving the process their attention, if they have attorneys already working with them, I mentioned the bookkeeper, the CFO. If the sellers doing it themselves, that's totally fine, as so long as they have the time to give the attention to be responsive. From full submission on our end to funding right now is averaging on my team, right? So I kind of have a different deal at the bank. It's 75 days, right, from submission to funding. We've been quicker, okay, but we've been longer. And the times we've been longer, what skews outward are things like the things we talked about earlier. Or when we're doing UCC and lien searches, heaven forbid, we find out that there's still a UCC from a loan that was paid off. But Ryan, the loan was made from a bank that has since been absorbed twice, and we don't know what back office to call because it doesn't exist anymore. And buyer and seller, nobody's mad at each other, but we're all working together to figure out how do we prove this is fine, because we need to prove that it's fine, right? Those are the rules. The bank can't like, oh no, we trust you guys. We have to figure that out, right? So that's something. Also, I mean, when there's commercial real estate in the deal, sometimes it can take longer based on appraisals, environmental reports that have to be done depending on industry, and that can skew us outward. Where we've been quicker is when we have an executed purchase agreement. We're going to do the bill of sale at the closing table, but if we can get the purchase agreement agreed upon while we're still in underwriting, if we can get the landlord and the buyer connected early on, so there's no surprises there, they understand the way the lease needs to look. If we can do those things early, by all means, we can be quick. I mean, I'm lucky, man. On a lot of my deals, I'm not trying to, whatever, but like Scott Oliver is a fantastic bank side attorney, right? I think he's going to be a guest here, or if he hasn't been yet. But Scott, like, I got a good folks working on my stuff, but we can only control what we have the ability to control. So if my suggestion to the seller that's looking for the quickest close possible is to be reasonable and to not panic, because what happens is you get hung up on details and you're so upset about, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? There's still all this other stuff we could be working on. Yeah, that tax clearance letter is going to take 3 weeks, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing making sure that the non-compete language makes sense. If there's a seller note, the language makes sense. The landlord waiver, again, I keep honing on that. There's always something to do. The quicker we can get to it, the better we'll close. And my buyers, I make sure that they are getting all those items in while they're in underwriting, because I have certainty of execution. So that results in a different experience than other folks. Not everybody that does what I do is the same. Not everybody at my bank does it the way I do it, right? So that's something that we've noticed to be successful. Let's get ahead of it. I understand. I can look at a purchase agreement and tell you on a high level if it's totally off. And if it looks iffy, we can send it to legal, whomever that may be.
Yeah, and you mentioned landlords a few times.
Yeah.
If your business is tied to any types of contracts, you need to go ahead and have your attorney review if they're assignable. Same thing with the landlord thing that you're talking about, right? Is it assignable to someone else? And if not, what's that process going to be like? Because in some industries, you have contracts and they're not assignable. You just can't give a new owner that company. I mean, you can have to buy it, equity purchase. Anyways, but those are the kinds of things that you have to know about before you go through this process, or during this process. You're going to be found out like, oh, I can't do an asset sale because all my contracts are tied to the company, so I got to do equity sales. That restructures how we're going to do stuff, and that's the kind of stuff that buyers are going to want to know about. So go ahead and talk to your business attorney about that. Okay, any final thoughts before we get out of here? This has been great. I've loved all this information. It's one of those things where there's so much that can make a deal go wrong. The better prepared you are, the better chance you have of it going forward. You mentioned your SEPA. I think they put out 80% of companies don't ever sell. So it's because of stuff like this. So where can people find you? Any final thoughts?
Absolutely. So, I'm on social media with just at my name, SBA. That's ALANPETRSON, SBA, at all platforms. I'm most active probably on LinkedIn. I'm trying to get back in on X more frequently, but it's hard to keep up with it because I'm working all day. My closing thoughts would be, if you're looking to buy a business or sell a business, regardless of who you work with, if you're getting to SBA, I'd love to work with you, but you don't have to. Make sure whomever you work with knows where the landmines are. There's a lot of well-meaning generalist lenders that will do a working capital deal, they'll do a debt refi, they'll do whatever. Make sure whomever it is knows business acquisitions intimately. That's my advice, because that's how SBA gets a 4-letter name.